are only three certainties in this world. We have death, we have taxes, and we have a newer, stronger commander in Rise of Kingdoms being right around the corner. And there's nothing that I love more than speculating and guessing and wish listing who these commanders might be coming to the game. I've been doing it for years, so today I'm going to get you guys up to speed on what the next commander cycle in the game might be, and who could the special commander release be in Rise of Kingdoms in 2025. And if you don't even know what a special commander release even is, stay tuned, because we're going to answer all that in this video. But first, of course, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, as you guys know, I am a partnered creator with Rise of Kingdoms, which means they support a few videos on the channel every single month, just like this one. But the most important support comes from you guys dropping a thumbs up and clicking the sub button, because we are so close, bro. We are so close to 90,000 subscribers, and you know what comes after 90,000 subscribers, ladies and gentlemen. 90,001 subscribers. That's right. So let's get Omniarch to 90,001 subscribers. That's the next big milestone. Now, the first thing that I want to start with here is what the next commander release cycle is going to be for Rise of Kingdoms. If you guys want to know more about the special commander release this year, stay tuned. We'll talk about that later. So as you guys know, we just had our Archer release. Okay, we had Emperor Chin and we have Shapur, who actually is just coming into the game right around now. And if you've been following the channel for a while, then you're going to know that I've been keeping track of the commander releases, their dates, and everything that they bring to the table. And so we kind of know what we might expect from the next release. Okay, what I'm expecting is the next release being at the end of September. That would be about 70 days from today. And this is pretty self-explanatory, right? We can just kind of go back through history and see a pretty reliable trend. Now, there's some breaks in the trend here, right, where we don't exactly get the commanders in the order that we expect them to, but recently it seems to be the case that we have cavalry, infantry, archers, leadership with engineering. That has been the trend lately. Okay, I would say at least since Lapu Lapu and Gajah Mada. All right, but here's where things get a little bit weird, because we just got Archimedes and Mary in Rise of Kingdoms as season 2 ranged commanders. Okay, now I don't want you guys to get confused. These two new legendaries are not the ranged release for Rise of Kingdoms, and the way that you know this is because, first of all, they're season 2 commanders, and second of all, they're both Wheel of Fortune commanders, right? You get both of these commanders from the Wheel of Fortune. There's no Mightiest Governor commander present, so we know for sure that these two commanders are not the quote-unquote ranged commander release for 2025. So the question is, are we going to get back-to-back legendary ranged commanders in Rise of Kingdoms? Like, obviously we had archers, and then right after archers dropped, we got these two out of nowhere, right? Like, we just randomly got these two new commanders. So what, in like 10 weeks the next commander release is going to come around, and that's also going to be ranged commanders? It seems a little bit bizarre to me, right? I'm going to be honest with you. It seems a little bit bizarre. Now, I'm not saying that they can't do that. I'm not saying that Rise of Kingdoms won't do that, right? Of course, that is the trend. They could definitely do that, but it just seems weird, right? Like, I don't know, that just feels like a lot of legendary ranged commanders back to back, especially for a troop type that is arguably the least used and least popular of the different troop types in Rise of Kingdoms. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not saying that, you know, whatever. I'm just saying, like, ranged commanders didn't even come into the game until not that long ago, if we're looking at the grand scheme of things, right? Ranged commanders didn't even exist until the beginning of 2023. So from 2018 to 2023, there weren't even any ranged commanders at all. So to have what is arguably the least used troop type, to have 4 legendary commanders back to back seems a little bit bizarre. So what could we get instead of that, right? Like, and again, I'm not saying that they won't do that, but I think if they were ever going to skip a ranged release, it would be this time, right? I think that would make the most sense. And so what I would expect actually is the next release to be 2 leadership commanders. I feel like we haven't had that in a very long time. In fact, the last time we had a quote-unquote leadership release was Suleiman and Honda Tadakatsu, which happened all the way back in 2021. That's right, November of 2021 we had Suleiman and Honda Tadakatsu, which is just absurd to think about. It's been at the time that they're coming out, September of 2025, around there. That's my guess. It's not set in stone, but it will have been almost 4 years since the last fully dedicated leadership release, which is crazy, right? And I think with Philip coming into the game back at the end of last year, I should say, Philip was very popular, right? Philip kind of came out and people really liked him. They thought that it was nice to have a commander that you can invest in and know that he's kind of a universal secondary, right? You can use him anywhere. And I'm not saying he's not good at as primary, but like most people don't have the special talents and the leadership stuff or a leadership talent on other gear for a specific troop type, right? It's nice to have Philip as a universal secondary commander and know that, okay, I'm using it with my infantry today, and then tomorrow I might be able to use him with my archer commanders, for example, right? And so I think Philip was pretty popular, and I think it would make sense for them to lean a little bit more into the leadership commanders, because again, not only was he popular, it's been so long since we got him, and it would just be weird to have so many legendary engineering commanders coming into the game in the middle of 2025. Like I don't know. So if we look back at the last time we had a dedicated leadership release, it was a conquering and field commander, right? Rally and field commander. And as you guys know, typically, and this wasn't the case the time before that, prior to that, right? But typically we have, it goes rally garrison, right? If you look at, like, let's say Bertrand was conquering back in the day. I have to actually update this because Bertrand has changed since then, but back then he was a rally, and then we had Jan Zizka, which was garrison, and then we had Justinian, who was rally, and then we had Eleanor, who was garrison. And so typically it goes rally garrison. And so if the upcoming release was a dual leadership release, then we might expect a leadership field commander and a leadership garrison commander, which I think would be really cool. I think a lot of times leadership garrisons are nice. People like to have, for example, it was Isun Sin behind Zenobia, and lately it has been Hera behind Gorgo, right? And I think that, you know, with Tokugawa coming to the game, I think I totally misspelled that. I'm so sorry. The U and the Y are right next to each other. Give me a break. All right. And also with even stronger rally commanders coming out lately, I mean, the single target damage from Shapura is like 3,200. It's ticks over 4 times, but like we're seeing a lot of damage out of these new rally commanders. And so we could use a Hera 2.0. That's all I'm saying. I feel like a Hera 2.0 that's actually built for flags and fortresses would be nice, because remember, Hera is not built for flags and fortresses. He's built for your city. It just so happens to be that he works really well in flags and forts as well, and that's kind of the best that we have for a mixed troop type garrison. And so I'm thinking a full leadership release next wouldn't be absurd. It wouldn't be like out of left field. I think it would make sense for them to do that. Beyond that, what they could do is say, okay, typically we release leadership and ranged at the same time. We just released ranged commanders for season 2, so we're going to skip a ranged release, and therefore we're going to skip a leadership release, and we're just going to go right to calves, right? They're just going to release the next set of cavalry commanders, and that would be what comes next, right? They just completely skip ranged and leadership, and we just move on, right? And that's how that goes. I think that is also definitely possible, because they've done that in the past, by the way. I know a lot of people forget about this, but if we go back here, you know, we had Hera, Bobber, and Margaret come out at the beginning of 2023, and then we saw archers, calves, infantry, archers, and then leadership engineering, right? They pushed back the leadership engineering. I think this had something to maybe do with Osiris League or something like that. I don't know why they moved these things around and released Herman Prime and Ashurbanipal at the beginning of 2024, but regardless, like, there is precedent for them moving around a ranged leadership release and like kind of pushing it back a cycle, right? And so what would make sense here would be we would do calves, infantry, archers, calves, leadership, engineering, and just kind of pushing it back a little bit to, you know, kind of give a little bit more time between the new season 2 legendary range and another actual range release, because again, it would just feel like, I don't know, the community who's not paying full attention here, they're going to be confused by seeing the season 2 range, and then, you know, 10 weeks from now they're going to see more range commanders, and they're going to think, what is going on? Why is there so many range? Like, why is it rise of ranged, right? Why is it rise of siege? People are just, I feel like people would get confused or annoyed by that, and so I can easily see them just pushing back that release one cycle and just moving up the cav release to September of this year. I personally, like, that is the one that I want to happen the most, right? Because first of all, I don't think that the ranged players would really appreciate having their cycle skipped completely in favor of some season 2 legends and some new leadership legends, right? Unless the leadership legends are like capable to being used as secondaries to your currently used range marches. But I think that was the biggest problem with Philip for ranged players, is that Philip does not give you really much of any, oh my god, what is it? He doesn't give you much of anything for ranged, right? He literally doesn't give you any stats at all. He gains march speed for range, sure, but you don't get any attack, defense, or health, right? And he also gives you some all damage, right? But even still, like, that's that's not really good for ranged, and also his active skill is not very good for ranged players either. So all in all, Philip as a secondary for ranged players isn't super good, and so they could do a full leadership release that is also semi-compatible with ranged to kind of appease the ranged players while we wait for another ranged release, or they could move up the cav release, push back the actual ranged release by one release cycle, and then, you know, they got to wait a little bit longer, but at least they still have something new and fresh coming down the pipeline, right? I think those are the two different routes that they could take to make, you know, to add a little bit of breathing room between the season 2 ranged and the next ranged, and keep everyone kind of happy and make things make sense, right? That's what makes the most sense to me personally. I would like to see, you know, honestly, it would be cool to see a full leadership release. I'm not against that at all. I like the fact that leadership are universal, but personally, I think that King Arthur needs a proper combo commander, right? I do. I think that, like, he really needs it, and so if they moved up the cav release to give him that, I feel like it would make a lot of sense, right? Because archers already have their full synergy, right? They have their skill damage formation, which could use some work, but at least they have one, and they also have, you know, all the commanders for archers are compatible with one another, right? They're all skill damage, so they all work together. And we have a bunch of smite commanders for infantry, right? We have Bai Chi, we have Liu Che, we have William Wallace, we have Gorgo. There's so many smite commanders, and so there's lots of synergy amongst all the infantry, but the one troop type that doesn't really have perfect synergy right now is cavalry, because they only have King Arthur in Season of Conquest, right? Of course you've got Bertrand, but ain't nobody going back and investing in a season 2 powered commander, especially because when they haven't even released a museum relic yet for him, so it just doesn't make sense to go ahead and do that, right? So I really think it would make a lot of sense to do calves next, then do a leadership and engineering release after that, kind of just swap the places of these two releases, right? Just move this one up, move this one back, and you're good to go. But I also could see a full leadership release just being kind of cool, right? We haven't had it in a while. I wouldn't be complaining about that. And then of course ranged just kind of get a little bit screwed over unless the leadership also work for ranged as well. So you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Which one would you prefer? Which route would you rather see them go? Do you want to see calves earlier? Do you want to see a full leadership release, or do you just think that we should just just keep the cycle, just keep it exactly as it is? And so what if there's 4 new legendary commanders that are all, you know, ranged? Like, who cares about that, right? Like, maybe you just don't care, or maybe you're a ranged player and you want there to be a ton of new engineering commanders. Let me know in the comment section below. Now, the last piece of the puzzle that we have to talk about is this year's secret commander, okay? And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, a secret commander in Rise of Kingdoms is what Ragnar Prime was last year. Now, he was a secret because he was a surprise drop. He was a out of left field, not part of any sort of commander release, not part of any sort of like event or anything like that. He just was part of a special new KVK story, and they just dropped him in the game randomly in the middle of November of last year, which was actually insane because infantry did not need Ragnar Prime at that point. We already had William Wallace, we already had Liu Che and Alex. Like, infantry were doing fine in the battlefield at this point, or at that point last year. Then we had Guan Scipio, and Guan Scipio was a little bit dated, sure, but like, my point is, like, we didn't need Ragnar Prime, right? They just gave him to us 35 days after we got Shajar, by the way, which is wild. Okay, and so what I'm expecting is that exact same trend to happen again this year, right? And so if you've made it this far into the video, congratulations, you are one of the few that know there's probably an additional commander coming this year that you're not even planning for, right? That is outside of this normal release schedule here. Okay, and the reason that I think we're getting another surprise drop commander is because the developers last year did say that they're planning on releasing one key KVK story every single year, right? And so, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that we get a new commander every time, but it could, right? It very well could. I think prior to that we had the Orleans KVK, which kind of featured Joan of Arc Prime, right? But Joan of Arc Prime doesn't really, I mean, there's nothing special about her kit that works really well in that KVK, whereas if you do the King of All Britain KVK, Ragnar actually gets a special artifact that turns him into any troop type, right? Which is really cool. I like that a lot. And so, you know, I think Ragnar Prime and his little gimmick is what made that KVK special, especially special, right, a special story and stand above the rest, right? And so in that same vein, again, I would really not be surprised if we saw another special story this year, because they said we would. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that also brought with it another special random commander drop sometime in the second half of this year, right? We're already halfway through July, so obviously it's going to be later. And so if that's the case, right, what troop type would that be given the setup that we currently have right now with what we're already expecting? Well, first of all, if we're looking at this lineup right here, okay, and we also know that we just got the season 2 ranged, I don't think we're going to get another like a 5th ranged commander in 2020. Like I can't see it. I can't see it happening, right? I don't think it's going to be a siege commander. And also the last time that they tried to release a KVK that was more focused around ranged gameplay, it didn't end up going super well. I know they did a pioneer event for content creators, and I don't remember why I wasn't there. I was invited, but I was busy doing something. Oh nice, I got water on my shirt. That's freaking sick. But anyway, my point is that the creator sort of pioneer event went well, but like that KVK just didn't happen to be super popular, at least from what I've heard. I don't know anyone who ever talks about that KVK or says they like it or whatever. So my point is, like, if they were going to do a special siege released commander, it would probably be in a siege based KVK, and that wasn't very popular last time, so I don't expect that to be the route that they go, right? And on top of the fact that like we're expecting new ranged and we just got new ranged, it just wouldn't make any sense. On top of that, I think it's also logical to assume that we're not going to be seeing another special infantry commander, right? We had Ragnar Prime last time, it was infantry. It would be insane to give infantry another free random surprise drop at the end of the year. Like that would just be, I mean, I'm an infantry main, I'll take it, right? But it just wouldn't be fair, right? Like it wouldn't be fair. So okay, so we've kind of narrowed it down to archers or cavalry, right? And again, we're already like cavalry's right around the corner, and archers we just had, so it's hard to predict which of the two we might get here. And honestly, it could go either way, right? I think that if I'm being perfectly honest, right, I think cavalry need it the most, which sounds crazy because before Emperor Chin came into the game, people were talking about how archers were so bad they were unusable. And honestly, I don't feel like that's the case. And the reason that I don't think that is because, you know, when I think of a troop type being unusable, I think of, do they have 2 pairs of commanders that are meta viable and strong in the open field? And I think if you look at Emperor Chin with YSG and you look at Zhuge Liang with Hermann Prime, I think those are 2 very competitive and very powerful commander pairs in the open field right now. So like really, I don't think archers really need that. But if you look at cavalry, I think cavalry, again, they have good pairs, right? Like if you look at, you know, obviously right now a lot of people are using King Arthur with William, or they're using King Arthur with Philip, and then they're using Huo with Joan of Arc Prime or Nevsky with Joan of Arc Prime, and that's fine, right? And they're solid. But if we look at those 2 commander pairs, right, if you look at those 2 compared to the 2 archer pairs that I just told you, it's really not even close. Like sure, the cavalry are, you know, definitely faster on the battlefield, and they're not weak by any means, but like they are the only troop type that is relying on single target damage in 2025, right? And like single target damage is like way weaker than AoE. Like it's not even close if we're talking about total damage output potential, right? And so when you take that into account, it's like, you know, yeah, Huo is strong for sure, but like I don't know. And then you also look at Joan of Arc, or you look at Philip's instant proc, or you look at William, those are all 3 target AoE. So even the AoE commanders that you have for cavalry are a little bit weaker than the AoE commanders for other troop types. Now, of course, King Arthur doesn't fall victim to that because his damage factor itself is just much higher, right? I don't know what to tell you. Now, am I going to sit here and say that Cavs are going to get a 5 target? No, I don't think so, right? I mean, maybe it's possible, but they've never got one before. It doesn't seem like that's the thing that cavalry get, right? They get the march speed. That's the benefit of calves. But all that to say, right, I think what we could really benefit from is and hear me out, okay, what we could benefit from is the next cav release being a really strong combo cavalry commander, and then the special commander release for this year being an AoE skill damage commander, just like we saw with Ragnar Prime, and also making that commander universal in whatever their special KVK is, right? Just like with Ragnar Prime, this whatever this new commander is mainly a cav commander, but in all the other kvks he becomes skill damage for whatever troop type you want, and bada bing bada boom, there you go, right? That is kind of what I would like to see. And like, I'm biased, right? I use more cavs than I do archers, so like, of course I'm a little bit biased there, but like, again, objectively, if you're looking at the current state of cavs versus the current state of every other troop type, like Emperor Chin was just so powerful that he basically revived YSG to an extent. And I'm not saying YSG is his best pair. You could use Ashurbanipal, you could use whatever else you want. Of course Zhuge Liang is the best option, right? But like, at the end of the day, like, him valuing that skill damage bonus so much just like makes it work. It just like brute forces him back into the meta almost, which is kind of hilarious how that worked out, similar to how Liu Che revived Alexander the Great in a way. I think you can kind of look at Emperor Chin with YSG in that same light, but my point is, like, you know, from a damage output perspective, I think that cavs are the ones that need an additional commander regardless, right? Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that archers won't get a special commander this year, right? I think that if we're looking at, like, realistically, you're saying Omniarch, use Emperor Chin with YSG, one of the oldest commanders in the game. Like, is that not evidence in itself that archers need another commander? And like, you know, sure, maybe, right? Like, his damage factor is 1700, it's a little bit low, and obviously we're really using him for the rage engine and the massive skill damage, right? Like, that's really what he's for, plus he has some stats and nice stuff on his relic, right? But okay, sure, let's follow that line of logic, then yeah, all right, I can understand that the next special commander could easily be archers, right? I think it could easily be archers, and then cavalry will just have to deal with, you know, either splitting up their two combo commanders whenever they get another combo, or just, you know, using King Arthur with a new combo commander and then just being stuck with the only single target damage commander on the board still, which is Huo, right? Which is like, it is I can't understand enough how not good that is. But yeah, so I personally think, you know, for those reasons, I would say cavalry needed a little bit more than archers, but I can also see the argument for archers getting that special commander, that additional commander as well, right? So that being said, you know, again, I don't know if we're going to get another special commander release this year. I think it makes sense if they follow the trend from last year. It makes sense that it would happen again with whatever the next KVK story is. But that's kind of my thoughts and opinions on how the next, you know, 5-6 months are going to play out here in Rise of Kingdoms. And I just wanted to bring this video to you guys so that way you guys can sort of prepare for what might be coming down the pipeline, and you can start to save your sculptures and start to invest accordingly. Okay, right now the safest investments are Emperor Chin, Arthur, and probably Liu Che, right? I think Baichi, you know, hits a little bit harder. Liu Che is a little bit more well-rounded, and the combo damage on the expertise here is real nice, so I like that a lot. But either way, those are probably the safest investments for sure. I'd love to know what you guys think down below, and I'd love to know what you guys think about the possibility of a special commander this year, and if so, what troop type do you think it's going to be? Now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a treat. Okay, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I want you guys to do me a favor. First of all, put 3 fire emojis in the comment section below. That way I'll know you made it to this secret call out here at the end. But I'm also going to give you guys a couple of predictions for commanders that I think are a little bit overdue for Rise of Kingdoms. I think these commanders, at some point, surely we've got to see one of these commanders come into the game. Okay, first of all, Oda Nobunaga seems like a no-brainer, right? I've been saying this for years, no-brainer. Same thing with Hattori Hanzo, seems very much a no-brainer. Hammurabi, like these are commanders, like why would they not be in Rise of Kingdoms, right? Like, what is actually taking so long? We have King Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, right? There's the ancient German commander Siegfried. That's a totally possible commander we could get. There's also Vlad the Impaler, right? Which is a really cool commander idea that I've not seen any other similar game do, right? Like, I don't see him in like the Civ series, for example. I think he might be modded in there, but he's not actually, I don't think he's officially in any of the Civ games. You can let me know in the comment section below if I'm wrong about that. As far as I know, and I haven't played Age of Empires in a while, but I don't think he's in Age of Empires either. So like, I think Vlad the Impaler would be really, really cool, and they could play with that sort of, you know, vampire type of aesthetic. And I just feel like we don't have any commanders like that, right? We don't have any, like, if we're thinking about, okay, what's a sort of gothic themed commander in Rise of Kingdoms, we don't really have one. And the closest one that we do have is, you already know, boys, you already know, it's the baddie, right? It's the baddie. She's got the black lipstick, black eyeliner, black hair, you know, the black tights, the black boots. Like, it, you know, let's be real, it's Artemisia. She's the only sort of gothic style, semi-gothic style commander in the game, right? So we need like a male counterpart, and I guess that wouldn't be like historically accurate to make him look like Dracula, obviously, right? So like obviously they probably shouldn't do that, but maybe lean into it a little bit, maybe with just like the color schemes, right? Just lean in a little bit, give us a little spooky vibe there, because we don't have that for any of these commanders. Oh, look at all these commanders. Look at how much red and gold is on all these commanders. It's actually almost a little bit boring. Like it's just too much, dude. There's just too much. There's too much red and gold in Rise of Kingdom. Like, what are we doing? Why is every commander red and gold? At least all the ones that are meta, right? Like, am I losing my mind here? Like, hello, it's just red and gold everywhere. Can we get something that's not red and gold, right? Like, I don't know. Every commander is red and gold in Rise of Kingdoms pretty much. I guess the exceptions are like Ragnar and whatever, but my point is, okay, give us a dark, spooky Vlad the Impaler type of commander. That'd be super sick. Anyway, those are some of the commanders that I think are, you know, I'm predicting, sort of wish listing, kind of throwing it out into the universe. I think those would be really cool ideas to bring to the game. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below if there's any other commanders that you specifically would really like to see come to the game. And guys, with that being said, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, make sure you drop a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton. It helps get this video out into the YouTube algorithm so other Rise of Kingdoms players might see it. And while you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a Rise of Kingdoms video, because we are so close to 90,001 subscribers. Anyway guys, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.